Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Robbins, and I am the Natural Resources Supervisor for St. Paul Parks and Recreation, a department within the city of St. Paul. And I was asked by Michael to attend tonight's meeting and have a conversation about wild animals. He did not really prep me for the conversation, so I've made some notes. I was going to start really high level, work down to some more specifics, and hopefully give you an understanding of what I do in my role as Natural Resources Supervisor with St. Paul Parks, and maybe give you a little bit of a hint of what my friends over in animal control do and what their responsibilities are. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a representative from animal control tonight to sit with us, so I will take any questions that you have back to them if I can't answer them, and I'll respond back to the Land Use Committee in a short period of time with answers, or hopefully answers. Let's see here. I'm going to dive straight into my notes to try not to lose my place and try to keep this brief, but I wanted to start at a really high level. And at that really high level, the city of St. Paul adheres to all federal and state laws regarding wildlife management. Many of these laws are very stringent, meaning that in most cases we are required to apply for permits or for tags or licenses to do anything, just as the public would if they were to remove or even harass a managed species, such as, some of these species could include white-tailed deer, or wild turkey. And if we were to knowingly harass a protected species that falls under the Migratory Bird Act, such as bald eagles, we would be held to the same stiff penalties that the public would be held to. Harassing a bald eagle actually carries a penalty of about $100,000 per event. So it can be pretty significant. And without proper communication, documentation, and permissions, we can get into a lot of trouble, even at the local level. Bringing it down to an even more local level, there are city and county ordinances that we also have to follow. In the case of wildlife management, that really means that there are very few individuals within the city that can legally discharge a weapon to control a wild animal. Animal control professionals are limited by the types of traps that they can use within public spaces, and poisonous baits are illegal, so they wouldn't even be an option. Within Parks and Recreation, in my position, we follow all of these laws and ordinances, and on top of that, we take our lead from animal control. Animal control is within the city's Department of Safety and Inspections, or for short, DSI. A separate department that I'm in. Again, I'm with Parks and Recreation. And in my own words, animal control does not interfere with wildlife unless they are injured, they pose a direct threat to public safety, or if they're causing significant damage to public infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? I'd say some examples when animal control would get involved with the management of a wild animal would include an injured deer that will not leave a roadway, an unusually aggressive coyote that's lunging at people walking their dogs along a bike path, or possibly even a beaver that's dammed up a storm sewer causing water to back up on a roadway. Animal control does not take action if wild animals are displaying normal behavior. Examples of this might be a deer in your front yard eating your hostas and arborvitae, a flock of turkey bedding down in a person's backyard causing issues, Canada geese making a mess of a front yard, raccoons in your chicken coop, or in some cases, even if you hear a fox screaming off in the distance. Animal control does not get involved in those situations. These are animals doing their animal thing, being wild in wild spaces. Parks and Recreation's role in wildlife management is actually very limited and limited to park land. I've got a wild animal barking at me right now. So all of the work that I do with wildlife is directly on park land. We as, I'm gonna have to let him out. Excuse me, just a second.
I'll just take this quick minute to say welcome, Janet and Suzanne and Aaron.
Hi.
My apologies. He'll keep doing that until I let him let him do his thing. Where was I? You know, in my role as a park employee, if somebody calls me with a question or concerns, I can provide as much advice as you can listen to. You know, I've heard everything from herds of pesky gray squirrels to, you know, what do I need to plant to keep deer out of my yard, to how do I scare turkey away? And, you know, I have a lot of those resources and I can provide that information, but, you know, honestly, in many cases, an internet search would probably provide as good a results as I would. One major exception to all of this, where I do get actively involved, is with deer management. St. Paul Parks and Recreation does work with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Ramsey County Parks and Recreation, the City of Maplewood, and two organizations. One's called the Metro Bow Hunters Resource Group, which is a nonprofit organization. And we also work with the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, to manage deer populations in the city. Historically, our efforts have all been focused along the river corridor where deer populations are high. We have an annual hunt at Bow Hunt at Crosby Farm and Highland Park. They also, in the area, are also hunting at Battle Creek and near Pig's Eye. And then we do some more extensive removal in the southeast corner of St. Paul, near Pig's Eye and Battle Creek with the USDA, in coordination with Maplewood and Ramsey County, to hire a sharpshooter to come in and control the populations in those areas. The reason we do that is because those populations are extremely high, and they exceed the carrying capacity of the land, or how many deer you should have in a certain area, by about 4 to 5 times the DNR's recommended urban deer herd size. So there are a lot of deer in a very small area. All of these deer hunts are highly coordinated efforts, and all of them begin with a population survey. We, as in the city of St. Paul and surrounding communities, hire Ramsey County to go up in a helicopter and count deer from the helicopter annually. So we have an exact idea, exact number, and exact locations of where all of these deer are bedded down and where our efforts would be the most, I can't think of the word, the best. And I was thinking about the Como area as well. I just moved to Battle Creek, but I was a resident of District 10 for 20 years, up until last year. And, you know, I've actually never received a complaint about deer in my position in my 16 years with Parks and Recreation from the Como area. It's not that people aren't complaining, it's just that it could mean that the complaints aren't coming to me. And I think, let's see, lastly, I wanted to recognize the coyote and fox conversation a little bit, because I know it's gaining more and more attention as people start seeing them, and sometimes they only hear them, which can be disturbing. And at this point, the DNR is not recommending control of the wild fox and coyote populations, nor is Ramsey County. And as a result, the city of St. Paul does not have a management plan in place for these animals. As they become more and more common in urban areas, you know, what we are doing is educating people about them, so that they can understand what they are, why they're here, and, you know, in most cases, people want to know, how do I keep them away? You know, the short answer is, as with most wild animals, fox and coyote are more afraid of us than we are of them. You know, we can do things like securing our garbage cans and bird feeders at night so we don't attract them to our property. We can keep our dogs on leash on public property, which is also required by city ordinance. We can keep our cats inside. We can go outside with our small dogs when they have to do their business. And if needed, we can shout, throw our hands up and get big just to scare them off. You know, I have fox and coyote in my backyard, and I also have raccoons, and the raccoons are the ones that are more pesky to me. And it's the same thing, you know, you get outside and you throw your arms up and you yell at them and they scurry away. So, you know, if you think about raccoons, it's kind of the same tactics as you use for fox and coyote. I'll kind of end the conversation and open it up for questions by saying that, you know, I recognize that the urban coyote and fox populations are still a bit of a mystery. I don't have all the answers, but the University of Minnesota has a program. It's called the Twin Cities Coyote and Fox Project, and they're hoping to provide real data and hopefully some real answers to help us demystify the urban fox and coyote population, to provide folks like myself, urban land managers, with useful information on how to, you know, deal with these populations and what that really means. The city of St. Paul is actually a willing participant in the study. We have spaces where fox and coyote are being caught, and they're being radio collared, and they're being tracked in our urban spaces in St. Paul and in Ramsey County. So the U of M can start to understand a little bit more about them and about their habits in our urban interface. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Adam. I think that's a great starting overview. And so kind of for this group, knowing that Adam is not from animal control, right? So we get him with the expertise that he has. And this is an opportunity for us to ask questions if we have them. So I'm just going to open the floor now for questions for Adam. I will start. I see them sometimes. My neighbor has lived in his house for 7 years. We call his backyard Jim's Wildlife Refuge because it seems like lots of animals like to come through there. And so we've seen, you know, fox and coyote and deer running down the street here and there. I guess the question I have is, it does seem to me that there have been more coyote, fox, whatever sightings and encounters this year. And I'm just wondering, like, are there actually more? Do we have any data? It sounds like there's this project out there, but is there anything that actually quantifies if there are more? And if there are, do we have some idea as to why?
Yeah, and I don't have all of those answers. That really truly is the answer that the U of M project is trying to answer. It's like, you know, where are they? How big are their territories? Is, you know, I think, you know, I know what I've read on the internet about different, you know, territories for different animals. And, you know, I believe a male coyote can have a territory of something crazy like 35 square miles. A female coyote typically closer to 6 to 9 square miles, so much smaller. But in this urban interface, who knows? You know, I hear them and see them often in Battle Creek. I don't know if it's the same one over and over. I'm not good enough at identifying it. And I think that remains to be seen. They definitely are more prevalent in urban areas now. We're seeing that all across the country. But my professional understanding is that there isn't enough information for us to make management decisions on the populations until we know more about them.
Thank you. Anne, looks like you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Do you know when, Adam, they started this collaring project and how many have they collared so far?
Ooh, I do not have that information, but I can get a link to you for their website.
Okay, that'd be great. And
yeah.
one other thing, So as far as deer go, so deer roaming up Victoria Street, for example, which has been happening. My husband and dogs see a herd every morning, and sometimes they're in the alley, and sometimes they're just roaming up Victoria. Is that something you want to report, or do you just like ignore them knowing they're going to walk away? Or I guess I'm thinking of, you know, the public safety hazard of a car speeding up Victoria and suddenly a deer jumps out. Any advice on that?
You know, I think it's kind of a mixed bag of tricks. You know, the population is very large along the river corridor because there's a lot of open space for them to inhabit. And they have a tendency to move into the neighborhoods during the winter months. That's when they, you know, go to town on your arborvitae and your yews and all of those evergreens that you actually want in your yard. You know, we make management decisions based on multiple factors, one being deer car collisions, which is a huge one. That's where the public safety piece really comes into play. And we work with I work with my counterpart in Ramsey County to determine where those are happening. We can get that data from the police, from the state patrol. So we have good information about that. The aerial surveys inform us as well. And then, you know, community complaints are really a big driver too. You know, in some instances, it's the greasy wheel, or what is that, squeaky wheel that gets the grease. If there are a lot of complaints coming from one area, we'll send the helicopter to that location. We'll see what we can find, and we'll make a management decision based on that real data versus hearsay. You know, it is illegal to put salt licks in your backyard to attract deer. It's not a good idea to pour corn and birdseed all over the yard as well to attract them, because your neighbors might not want them in their yard. So if you're attracting them to your yard, you're also attracting them to your neighbors' yards. And there are ordinances against feeding wildlife. But I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but we do put together a lot of different information. If there are just deer walking down Victoria and it doesn't seem to be causing you or your neighbors any issues, I wouldn't go as far as to report it.
Other questions for Adam? Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Have there been any problems? I mean, this was a timely conversation. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate the information, but have there been problems with, coyotes and fox, other than, a squirrel carcass in your backyard occasionally or something? Have there been concerns beyond that people are trying, that fosters this kind of conversation, or is it just curious if there's been any?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's, well,
questions.
Yeah, it's people asking the same questions that Maggie asked.
Okay.
Are there more of them? Are they more prevalent? Are we just seeing them more for some reason? That's, again, data that's being collected that I don't have a great answer to. I know there is a certain level of fear, and that drives a lot of questions as well. I've got a small dog. Is my small dog in danger if I let her out into the backyard?
Okay.
I think, I have only heard of one incident where a coyote was removed by animal control because it was showing aggressive behavior, but that was about 2 years ago.
All right. Okay, thanks.
And Rich, I think it might, just as sort of like a little bit of an explainer here, a lot of times when we, invite people to come to land use or to one of the other committees, it's because there's some bubbling up in the neighborhood that leads us to believe that this is on people's minds. And Michael in the past has done a pretty good job of, let's say, doing a light sift through some of our both emails to D10 and social media sites to see what people are
No,
Right,
no,
it just seems this year there
appreciate
was a lot
that.
of people.
I've
Yeah.
enjoyed the coyote howling in the middle of the lake at sunset, and I was just curious if there were any problems beyond concern. So anyway.
Not that we know. Aaron, did you have a question?
Hey, Adam, just wondering if there's been any incidents of rabies that has happened with wildlife.
That I'm not aware of.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I know raccoons and skunks are supposed to be the ones I heard, and bats, obviously, that spread.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I did, I've had my own tangle with raccoons. When I lived in the Como neighborhood, I had a flock of what are those things called? Ducks. I had 4 ducks in a duck house in my backyard, and I had them until the raccoon got to them. So that was a sad day for me and my kids.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Chad, go ahead.
I was just curious, do foxes and coyotes typically have like similar habitats? Like, whereas if you have sightings and issues of one, you're going to have sightings and issues with the other?
Yep, exactly. They do inhabit wooded areas. They often like to be kind of on woodland edges where there are open spaces where they can get at rabbits and mice and other fuzzy, tasty morsels. I know in my neighborhood I have a red fox den less than 150 feet from my house, and there's a coyote that's constantly in the area as well. And I can see them hunting around the corner in the open grass field. So it's they coexist in the same type of habitat.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I know, just as a little bit of information, in the Como Woodland Outdoor Classroom at kind of the intersection of Como Avenue and Hamlin, we've had all 3 denning in that area. Well, I should say all 3. We've had red fox, we've had gray fox, and we've had coyote denning in that area. So it's pretty neat. It's really, I think it's quite special that we have such a wide variety of wildlife in these urban places. We have a lot of great green spaces and a lot of connections along railroads and along the Mississippi River. We have just an incredible amount of habitat, and so it's no wonder that they're in our neighborhoods now too.
Anne.
Sorry. Okay, so when I walked around the lake tonight, I noticed that there were some like informational things about recycling. Have you ever thought about putting informational things about wildlife around the lake? Because it seemed, if you go look at this display, some of the facts that you have itself really well to just some educational things around the path.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. We have put some information out down in our river parks about coyote and fox because people are seeing them and they're concerned. In all honesty, I think most of the complaints down there are coming from people that let their dogs run off leash into the woods, and then they have a altercation with a fox or a coyote, and then they call us complaining, and our response is, well, the dog should have been on a leash. That would have solved all of those issues for you. But I do like that idea. I can take that back to the team and we can see if there's something that we can produce that would be helpful.
Other questions for Adam while we've got him here? All right.
All right. And I can provide the Twin Cities Coyote and Fox Project email, or excuse me, website if you'd like that. It's actually quite short. It's just TCCFP, so TCCFP, Twin Cities Coyote and Fox Project .umn.edu. TCCFP.umn.edu.
I put it in the chat, so hopefully that just showed up for folks. Yeah, I think that that's actually, I can imagine that that would be a great resource to share with people who need a place to say that they've seen the coyote or the fox. I think to some extent it's when you note something that, you know, is new or different to you, people want to share that. And so I think that that's a lot of what we've been hearing in the last few months.
They actually started their project as well with a request for help from the public to let them know where they've seen coyote and fox so they can go to those locations and try to track them down. So it really has been a neat public interfacing project.
We can help add data points here from Como. Yeah. So thank you so much, Adam. We really appreciate your time tonight. Maybe we will ask for you to come back, you know, whenever we've got our winter invasion of some other crop of critters that we have questions about. Thank you again.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.